The 2024 MotoGP World Championship is over, and I thought, why don't I make a video about it? After all, it was a pretty fun season, and the title fight went right down to the wire. We also witnessed some big changes to the grid. The biggest of them all was the 8-time world champion Marc Marquez changing camps, leaving his beloved Repsol Honda team for Gresini. That news was the hottest topic before the start of the season, and during it as well. I mean, it's not every day we see a multiple-time world champion leaving the biggest factory team for a small family-owned satellite team, right? TGL left the Gresini team to make way for Marquez and joined the VR46 squad, while Repsol Honda signed Luca Marini. Paul Espargaro retired from the sport, handing his gas Tech 3 ride to the highly rated rookie Pedro Acosta, who joined the Premier class after winning the Moto2 title in 2023. Frankie Morbidelli joined Jorge Martin at Pramac, while Alex Rins took his spot at the factory Yamaha team after a challenging year at LCR Honda. The LCR Honda team signed the experienced Frenchman Joan Zarco on a multi-year contract. And we also saw a team rebrand, with Trackhouse Racing taking over the RNF racing squad. Anyway, let's take a look at how the 2024 season started and how it ended. The season started with a banger in Qatar, as Pedro Acosta overtook some big guns like they were nothing, but started dropping back when he realized that you also have to manage the tires. Jorge Martin, the sprint king, started the year with a sprint win, while Pecco Bagnaia was the victor in the main race. Brad Binder secured 2 second-place finishes, giving us hope that KTM would be in the championship battle, but those hopes were shattered as Brad failed to make it onto the podium again for the rest of the season. Portugal saw Maverick Vinales clinch the sprint win. Marc Marquez finished second after an aggressive late move on Martin, while Pecco Bagnaia struggled to get to grips with his GP24. The main race saw Martin take the win after Vinales suffered a bizarre bike issue. Pecco and Marc took each other out late in the race after refusing to give each other an inch. Thanks to that little scuffle, Pedro Acosta became the youngest rider to achieve a podium in the MotoGP class. Then in Austin, Marc seemed like an obvious favorite given his history with the circuit. He secured his first Ducati front row in qualifying and second place in the sprint. In the main race, he suffered a brake issue while leading, causing him to crash out of the race. Maverick Vinales did a clean sweep that weekend with pole, a sprint win, and a race victory. That race gave us the hope that maybe, just maybe, Aprilia could take the fight to the Ducatis. But that hope was also shattered, as that was the last time we ever saw Vinales at the front fighting for the podium for the rest of the season. I don't understand Vinales at all. One race the guy comes and smashes everyone, and then just goes back to his struggling ways. With that win, he became the only rider in the history to win races for 3 different manufacturers. Then in Jerez, Jorge Martin returned to his old ways of winning the sprint and crashing out of the lead on Sunday. Marc Marquez and Pecco Bagnaia gave us a battle to remember for ages as the duo went head-to-head in the closing stages of the race, with Pecco coming out on top and Marc scoring his first podium with Ducati. That was also the only time we saw Marco Bezzecchi on the podium, as he seemed to struggle with the bike throughout the season. The French GP saw Jorge Martin masterclass, winning both the sprint and the main race from pole position, with Marc Marquez carving his way through the field from 13th on the grid to a spectacular second place in both races. The Catalan GP saw another Marc Marquez comeback, this time starting from 14th and finishing second in the sprint and a brilliant third in the main race. Pecco Bagnaia dumped it on the last lap of the sprint, giving Aleix Espargaro the win as an early farewell present. Pecco did win the main race though, as he was in a different league from the rest. We also saw strong performances from riders like Raul Fernandez and Pedro Acosta before they suffered crashes. In Mugello, the Ducatis dominated again, with Pecco winning both races. In the sprint, Jorge Martin's aggressive move caused contact with Bastianini, leading to his crash, and a few laps later, Martin crashed as well. Enea did get his revenge on Jorge in the race with an unexpected last lap, last corner overtake to snatch second place, making it a factory Ducati 1-2 on the podium. The rest of the field just couldn't keep up with the GP24s that weekend. The Dutch GP saw another Pecco Bagnaia domination as he won both races while Martin finished a close second. In Germany, the clear favorite Marc Marquez suffered crashes in practice and bad luck in qualifying that saw him start the race from 13th. But as usual, he made an excellent recovery to second place after Jorge Martin crashed out of the lead. Bagnaia won the race and both Marquez brothers joined him on the podium. Finally, in the British Grand Prix, we saw the beast return to the top step of the podium in both the sprint and the main race. Ine looked the quickest that weekend, and the GP24s locked the podium places. Austria was another weekend dominated by the GP24s as the ride height device malfunction caused Marc Marquez to lose many positions at the start, costing him a shot at the podium. But the 8-time world champion came guns blazing in Aragon with a devastating performance in tricky track conditions. Marquez obliterated the field, starting from pole position to secure his first race win after 1,043 days. In Aragon, Marc opened a new chapter of winning with Ducati as he won both the sprint and the main race. Jorge Martin finished runner-up in both races while Pecco Bagnaia had an absolute disaster of a weekend. Pecco struggled at the start after a bad launch from the line and later got tangled with Alex Marquez, which took both of them out of the race. It was another double podium finish for the rookie Pedro Acosta, who was making it a habit of being the leading pure mobility group rider. After winning in Aragon, the second win on Ducati for Marc Marquez came sooner than expected in the next race in Misano as he won in the flat conditions, starting from 7th. Pecco Bagnaia finished runner-up in both races. Jorge Martin won the sprint but made the wrong call to pit when a light drizzle hit the track, which later stopped after just a couple of laps. The second race in Misano saw Bastianini return to winning ways after a super aggressive late overtake on Jorge Martin on the last lap of the race. Bagnaia looked quickest after his sprint victory but suffered some tire wear issues on Sunday that saw him drop down from the lead before crashing out of the race. In Mandalika, Jorge Martin won the race on Sunday after suffering a crash in the sprint with a brilliant performance from Pedro Acosta, who finished second ahead of Pecco Bagnaia. Bastianini suffered a crash after showing some strong pace, while Marc Marquez's engine caught fire, causing him to retire from the race. In Japan, Acosta secured his first pole position in MotoGP, but crashed in both the sprint and the race despite showing strong form on the KTM. Bagnaia won both races while Jorge Martin finished second ahead of Marc Marquez. Phillip Island turned out to be an absolute thriller as Marc Marquez took his third win of the season after losing 12 positions at the start. Bagnaia failed to match the pace of Marquez and Martin as he finished in a lonely third place. The Thai GP proved a challenging ground for many riders as they struggled in the rainy conditions. Not for Pecco Bagnaia though, as he won the race from pole position. Jorge Martin finished in a lonely second. Pedro Acosta and Jack Miller fought a tough battle for the final podium spot, with the Australian yielding to his rookie KTM stablemate's aggression. Acosta took his 9th podium of the season, the most of any non-Ducati rider. The penultimate round in Malaysia saw Pecco Bagnaia basically serve the World Championship to Jorge Martin on a platter as he crashed from the second place in the sprint. And even though he won the main race, it was evidently clear that Pecco's title hopes were almost over, and it would take a miracle now to defend his crown. Martin played by the strategy and finished in a safe second place after giving Pecco a hard fight for a few laps at the start. With a 24 points gap going into the final round in Barcelona, Martin had one hand on the championship trophy. Despite the sprint and race victories from Pecco Bagnaia, 2 third-place finishes were more than enough for Martin to snatch the world title and become the first independent team rider to win a championship in the MotoGP era. And with a brilliant second-place finish in the final race, Marc Marquez took 3rd place in the standings ahead of Enea Bastianini. Marc was expected to be a title contender, and for a good part of the year he was, but the gap between the GP23 and GP24 turned out to be quite significant, as the GP24s were almost 3 to 4 times quicker on average. Despite winning 11 races and 7 sprints, Pecco Bagnaia failed to defend his title against a more consistent Jorge Martin. Now, what are my final thoughts about the 2024 season? I would say it wasn't the best of the seasons, but it wasn't bad either. Yes, the Ducati dominance was kinda boring, and I expected the KTMs and Aprilias to make their lives difficult, but sadly that didn't happen. As someone who has witnessed battles between riders like Rossi, Lorenzo, Marquez and Pedrosa, the current MotoGP races just fall short in terms of thrilling battles. Other than Malaysia, we never really saw the 2 title contenders go elbow to elbow and fight that hard for the win. Even that battle only lasted a few laps. It was always like if the rider in front made a small gap of 1 or 2 seconds, the rider behind just accepted defeat and didn't take any risk to fight for the win. They just settled for second or third. And I get that perhaps it was strategic to avoid any risk of crashing out, but come on, that's not fun. I might be wrong, but I don't know. Throughout the season, the all-time lap records were smashed out of the park by the Ducati boys. For me, the most entertaining riders of the season were Marquez and Acosta. Marquez and his charge through the field reminded us of old Marquez domination days. He was miles ahead of the rest of the GP23s and was consistently fighting with the GP24s at the front. I can't wait to see what he's able to do on the GP25 next year. And Acosta, in his rookie season, showed us that he is the real deal and pretty much lived up to the hype. Sure, he made a lot of mistakes and had the most crashes, but that's natural for a rookie getting familiar with a MotoGP bike and exploring its limits. He put the Gas KTM on the podium so many times that it made KTM bosses doubt their experienced riders as they swiftly promoted Acosta to the factory team. Despite what the standings say, for me, he was the best non-Ducati rider and the leading KTM on the grid. I was expecting a bit more from riders like Brad, Maverick, Enea, Baz and Oliveira, as I still believe these are some really good riders with a lot of potential. I hope Honda and Yamaha sort out their sorry state of affairs as quickly as possible, because I believe riders like Quartararo, Rins and me deserve more than what their current bikes are able to deliver. And that's a wrap on the 2024 MotoGP World Championship, guys. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like and don't forget to subscribe. What did you guys think of the season? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.